just watching Ericsson, the way he plays, he's brave enough to try those passes, the ones that could make a difference. And if they do get cut out, it's very rarely that it was a bad decision. It might have been a poor execution, or it might have been great defending that stops the ball reaching that point of where it turns into an opportunity to score. So for me, Ericsson, he's maybe not as agile, and he might have lost at the worst half a yard through the fact of years catching up, and then obviously what happened to him as well. But the one thing he hasn't lost is that bit in his head. And there's been so many great players who have played in English football who haven't been the quickest. The most modern day one, I would say, who was never the quickest player ever, was Teddy Sheringham. And he was, up until his latter years, and Teddy played well into his 30s, was still very clever with the ball and with his movement. And the brain is always going to be quicker than the feet. Christian Eriksen's never going to be negative. I mean, talk about Pirlo, and he wasn't making big tackles. Manchester United had a player, an unsung hero player for a number of seasons, who actually never got the full rewards of everything he should have got from the fans until he wasn't there, and that was Michael Carrick. Michael Carrick never come off the pitch with his shorts dirty, but he mostly intercepted the ball more than any other player on the pitch. And he actually knew where to go and stand to prevent a pass, rather than reacting late and having to make a big slide tackle and put himself in risk of getting a yellow card. So I think Ericsson is definitely going to be one of those players. He'll play for a number of years. I think it'd be better for him, and it'd be better for the club, if there was an opportunity for him to go somewhere where he's going to play week in, week out, then for him to go. And it might be better for the players around as well if he's not there putting pressure on them. Because you look at Fernandes now. Fernandes has had his best 2 games in the last 18 months, at least. He doesn't need that pressure of one of his compatriots there with him, because I think he feels obliged to give everything to him, the ball in opportunities, dead ball situations. So Manchester United, he's got the option, if he wanted to really desperately go, to buy himself out of his contract. Or Manchester United can look at it and say, we're willing to let you walk away from your contract. You know, whatever losses we make for the future because of you going, we're willing to accept. And you're not willing, and if you're not willing to take what's left of your contract, then they could do that. The onus is on him and what he wants. It's not the manager. The manager, I think, kind of prior to everything, made it obvious that he didn't want him. He didn't see him fitting his plans, but the club and the people above just saw the fact of it. The PR machine was going to make money. And now that PR machine is really, in theory, is dying a bit of a death, because of, I think, the real fans, the real proper fans, are looking that he's affecting the team, and they're not going to go out and buy Ronaldo shirts because they don't see him as part of the future. So, yes, Chelsea will compete next season for the Premier League with Graham Potter at this moment in time. I just think of one player, and it's the first player you said, Trossard. He's the one player who I would say, if I look at Chelsea's midfield, which they haven't got, yes, they've got a lot of pace. You know, when you look at Pulisic, you know, he gets around you, think Ziyech in certain ways, the way he is, but it hasn't really worked out for him at Chelsea. Not to say that it'd be different, it'd be better. He couldn't be any better at another Premier League club or under Graham Potter with maybe a pre-season to work with him. But definitely Trossard. I mean, Trossard against Manchester City was incredible. His energy levels, his change of pace. He can play all kinds of football. He could play in a slow, patient team. He could play in a high-tempo team. So for me, Graham Potter would look to go and get Trossard. He brought him there from nowhere. I still can't believe that Trossard can't even get in the Belgium team. It doesn't make any sense to me how he couldn't get into that team. It's absolutely crazy. I would look at it and say that Graham Potter, in his own mind, would maybe be looking at another goalkeeper. Because even though Kepa's back and he's back. Not because Graham Potter said he's back. I think at the time, I think even Tuchel had dropped him, hadn't he?
Yeah.
So I think he's carried it on out of respect. I think Chelsea's results and performances have made a difference to the fact of kept it for him to still be in goal because they've defended better. I saw a few instances against Manchester United where I said he's still not right. He doesn't look confident. I saw last night where he made a massive boo-boo on the ball that come into the box, and his way of hiding that boo-boo was to make out like he was fouled and he was injured, when in fact he was. I don't know how he got injured in the way where he ended up. It was impossible. We saw Mendy do that twice against West Ham. When he gave one goal away and he should have given a second, but the referee and VAR had other ideas. So I don't think Kepa is really in theory doing himself justice. I think if you was again, I say Chelsea fans, and they say you asking the question who's the better of the two, they'll be juggling. If you said to them, what about being your number one goalkeeper? Who would you want? They would say another one. That's what they would say. When he went there, Conte, I believe that Spurs were going to be competing. There was going to be going to cause problems, not to win the league, but they was going to take points away from the major teams. I look at them now and I look at their position. If you judged it on football, they shouldn't be where they are. If you judged our football, if you're talking about a team that's just grinding games out and playing in a negative fashion and nicking it and hoping individuals can win them games, that's Chelsea. That's Tottenham at this moment in time. Their key players, not really doing it. They haven't got a midfield that can create. They're relying on, let's say, Kane to score them a goal. I think Son is struggling. He doesn't look happy. I think there's too much onus on him, as there's been for many seasons. If you talk about Spurs, in my opinion, their best player and the one player they miss more than anyone if he's not playing, his Son, it's definitely going to be in wide areas, wing backs. It's going to be at least one defender, because he can't carry on with Eric Dyer as his sweeper. That can't work anymore. He's going to be looking for a midfield player. He's going to at least one midfield player. He's going to be looking at a striker. Strikers don't come cheap. So that's 5 players I think I've named you there. 5 positions where he's going to want to tweak. That's a lot of money if you're looking for the levels where he wants to be. And plus his wages. He's not a cheap manager to employ as well, because he's delivered. And he wants to deliver again to put him in a position to say he warrants that money and next time he can get more. But you have to speculate to accumulate with Antonio Conte as your manager. I believe this will be Declan Rice's last season. There's going to be no speculation at the moment because there's a World Cup coming up and he's not going to go in January. It doesn't do any favours. But I think with the signing of Finn Downs, I think that West Ham will just look at this and just let him go. And all it is, the only thing he's got to do, he's got to choose his club wisely, which club he goes to. That's the next thing. I mean, people, it's not going to be Manchester City because they've already got Calvin Phillips. They've got a Rodri still relatively young. That doesn't make any sense for him. Wherever he goes, Declan Rice is one of those players who would actually, you could play him in every single game. And people want to tell him he's tired, but he says, no, I'm doing what I love. So in my eyes, that makes him a great player, because I don't see how people can get tired, complain about being tired, doing something they love in football, and maybe 2 games in 8 days while people are digging roads every day of their lives. So I like that about him. David Moyes loves players who want to play every game. David Moyes doesn't want to change the team. But Declan Rice, I think if he's talking about the levels where he should be or where he wants to be, club level, then you're looking at Manchester United, you're looking Liverpool, keep talking about midfield, but what position are Liverpool in at this moment? We're seeing these little things. I don't think the media want to have a go at Liverpool or throw too much a strong opinion about issues going on. But I think there's issues going on at Liverpool, and not so much on the pitch as off the pitch as well. There's rumblings going on there, and ironically, they've got American owners, so seem hand in hand. I do, so he's got to be careful that he doesn't step into the wrong place. He's got to make sure it's right. But where does he go other than that? He's not going to go and sign for a Spurs. It would be too respectful to West Ham to go and join them from West Ham, and it wouldn't be. The West Ham fans just wouldn't, they just look at that as not a good move for him. The rivalry, and they don't see it as a step forward. They want him to go to a club so he can believe he's going to go and win medals, big trophies, and they'll take it that they gave him his apprenticeship and he's one of theirs. So his next choice is important. Where he goes next. But I think for him, Declan Rice, he goes and makes that move as well to a bigger club or a bigger club in name, then that's him putting himself forward to become the captain of England. If you're talking about a captain of England, then at this moment you'd look at a Declan Rice. You wouldn't look at a Harry Kane. He's not a captain of England. Harry Kane is a PR machine. That's what he is more than anything, because he's not a leader of men like Declan Rice is. David Moyes is a lot of his history now is recovery, what he done the season before last, and then last season was something exceptional. I spent a lot of time there. It's mostly where you got that. You thought that West Ham was in my heart, but it was incredible going there to watch that. My local team doing incredible stuff in Europe, winning some incredible games as well, some great performances, and David Moyes has given West Ham. He gave them one of their best ever seasons at the football. Everyone enjoyed it. They earned a lot of money, great fight, financially, big crowd, 60,000 plus. So at the moment, he created a monster. And sometimes that monster could end up with you losing your job. And I think it'd be foolhardy of the people in charge of the club to go and get rid of him, because what they would have to go and do again, they'd have to start again. So the next manager coming in would want to bring his own players in. They're giving David Moyes a lot of money, but that was to try and build again with new faces, and that means in certain ways you're starting in a better position because you've got more depth. David Moyes, I don't think he likes too much depth because he doesn't want too many choices. He wants guaranteed players who he knows can do it. So I believe that common sense will prevail and they'll accept this season. I think Europe is a must for the club with the stadium. I think it's a must for David Moyes because he wants that, because it helps him get players, and for his own ego, he wants to manage in Europe and keep testing himself. He wants to win a trophy. I think he has to do better than what he did last time. I think he walked in. He done a David Moyes, didn't he? He followed on from Arsene Wenger. The difference is, David Moyes walked into a team that just won the Premier League. Emery walked into a team that had lost its way under their greatest ever manager. His last two seasons were terrible. So he got virtually left nothing to work with, and he had to deal with that. He had our media, our press, having a go at him by the way he spoke and his limited English. And maybe, as you know yourself, we, the English, are the laziest in the world because we think everyone should speak English. So we had no right to be doing that to that man, and they done it. They persecuted him over that, which was an absolute disgrace. The man's record is incredible prior to him coming to Arsenal, and since he left Arsenal, what he's won, I think he's won 5 European trophies, isn't he, in Europa League, and he's an expert in Europa League and winning that. I think he's even won a domestic as well, and his record is absolutely brilliant. For Aston Villa, it's fantastic. So I think he would have learnt from before. I'm sure his English will be better. If it's not better, well, what difference it is, mate? They always say football has its own language, which everyone understands. Those players will respect him. I think the club might be a happier place because of him. It seemed to have lost its mojo. Certain players didn't seem content. And then those players go and score goals at the weekend, the ones who weren't content. So I'm looking forward. I mean, I love a bit of nostalgia. I still remember Aston Villa, 81 winning the Football League, 82 winning the European Cup.